Hello and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And on screen today we've got a puzzle by Stavros96, which he calls Crossguard Lightsaber. Now he must know about my penchant for Star Wars, I think, and this certainly appeals to my inborn midichlorian count. I think what's going to happen actually, if you highlight these little killer diagonals, you must get the shape of a sword or something. So why don't we actually just kick off by revealing this lightsaber, assuming I can actually click correctly. Of course I can't. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? Right, let's colour those in, get rid of those two, I think. Is that what we get left with? Something like that. And that is broadly the shape of a sword. So very nice idea indeed. Now this has been recommended to us by the Discord server. So if you've never gone to our Discord server, I definitely recommend it. There's a great community of puzzle solvers and puzzle creators over there. Many of the world's best in their fields, and all very friendly, and it's just a very good place to hang out. There's a link under the video. Now there's also a link under the video to Sam Cappleman-Lynes' recent competition puzzle. You've got till Saturday to send in your entries, which we're judging based on logical reasoning and artistic impression. And I've been going through, we've had about 200 entries so far. I've been going through them slowly. I still think there's room for somebody to sneak up on the outside. No one's quite nailed Sam's logic, in my opinion, yet. So there's a little bit of gap on logical reasoning. And we have had some beautiful entries, though. So artistic impression you'll certainly have to major on if you want to win the merchandise. Our Kickstarter book, there's very few days left if you want to get hold of a copy. And somebody told me yesterday that incredibly our Kickstarter book is the second most successful puzzle related Kickstarter in the history of, well, Kickstarter, which is amazing. So a huge thank you to those of you who've helped to make it what it is, and it's still going strong. There are still stretch goals to hit, so do have a look at it if you've not had a look yet. Now, I know some of you are fans of cryptic crosswords, and I actually did a bonus video today. It went out at 10 o'clock this morning UK time on the fantastic Dave Gorman's most recent puzzle. Now, Dave is a very popular comedian. Well, he is here in the UK. I presume he's famous across the world, and he has done this cryptic crossword, and it has a theme in it that is very dear to my heart. And I definitely recommend watching it if you're a fan of The Young Ones, which was a programme on BBC TV when I was a boy. Then, well, I was a teenager, to be honest. I wouldn't not have been allowed to watch The Young Ones had I been a boy. But it's a very good crossword, and also a very, it invokes nostalgia, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, what are the rules of Stavros96's puzzle? Let me read them to you. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. Clues outside the grid give the sum of the cells along the indicated diagonal. Digits may repeat along these diagonals. So let's just look at the 57 clue, for example. That's telling us that those cells along the diagonal sum up to 57. And you can repeat digits along diagonals. Obviously, those two cells couldn't be the same because they're in box 1. So the rules of Sudoku prevent these two being the same, but these two could be the same. Now, we've also got cells separated by a V must sum to 5. So there's a few of these dotted around. 6 of those. And cells separated by an X must sum to 10. So there's 3 of those, I think. And there is no negative constraint. That's very important normally in these puzzles. So a negative constraint would be saying that if, for example, we looked at this domino, you can see there's no V or X on the line between these two cells here. So we cannot assume, because there is no negative constraint, we cannot assume that these do not sum to 5 or 10. It's absolutely possible that these two cells would sum to 5 or 10. All we're being told by the clues is that these particular dominoes absolutely do sum to 5 in that case, 10 to that case. So that's the rules. Do have a go. The way to play, of course, is to click the link under the video. I'll get rid of the highlighting. We're good to go. Let's get cracking and see how we do. And the first thing that I'm immediately seeing here is, look, we've got these V's. Now, if you've got 2 V's in a box, there are only 2 ways of making 5 in 2 cells. It's either 1, 4 or 2, 3. So we actually get 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruples in boxes 1, 5 and 9. Now, is that telling us anything interesting? I'm sure it is telling us something interesting. I just can't see what it is. No, I can't see what it is. So I'm not sure what we do with these now. I'm going to have a look at some of the little killer clues. These ones don't look very good at all. 16 in 5 cells. I mean, I suppose that one's got to be at least 5, but that still leaves a lot of latitude in the other 4 cells. 25 in 6 is completely unhelpful. You know, it's averaging fairly close to 5, and that's all you need to know it's unhelpful. Similarly with 32. So one possibility is that we've got to view these clues as a triple, but I'm going to check these ones first. So 31 in 8. Okay, well that's still not brilliant, is it? It's not brilliant. It's very close to 4. 57 in 9 is also not great. It's averaging just above 6. And that one's going to be okay. So there's nothing doing in these if you treat them individually. So let's treat them as a group. And in fact, I've seen this pattern before where the 3 sort of closest or longest diagonals are treated as a group in little killer clues. And quite often the reason for doing this from a constructor's perspective is that you can make a play between the value of the purple squares, which is going to be what, 88, 120, and the values of boxes 1, 5 and 9. Because we know that each one of these boxes, if we looked at the finished solution and added up these cells, what would we get? Well, we know that the digits 1 to 9 must all appear in box 1, so you add up the digits 1 to 9, you get 45. So I know that these 3 boxes add up to 135. So now there is sort of a mathematical relationship between the 120 and the 135. To get from one to the other, to get from 120 to 135, we're going to have to add in these cells, because they're definitely in boxes 1, 5 and 9. I'll make those green, and we've got to deduct, look, these squares which do not sit in those boxes. Now okay, right, so actually this is definitely quite constrained, isn't it? Because none of these green cells can be very large. Yeah, okay, look. What's the maximum we can make these 2 green cells in this box? Well, oopsie, I didn't mean to do whatever I did there. That was a total disaster. The maximum I can make those 2 squares is 3 and 4, so 7. So I can at a maximum, I could add 21 to my 120. That gets me to 141, which means the absolute maximum these can be, because I need to get back to 135, the absolute maximum these can be is 6. But they could all be 1. Probably. Oh no, they can't. Oh, I see. Right. Haha. This is clever. This is in fact, it's very clever. It's very clever. Actually, we only have to think about these in pairs. In fact, let's look at let's just look at these 2. Is it possible that these are both 1? And it's not, because of these V clues. If these are both 1, you can't put 1, 4 into one of the V clues. So these are not both 1. Now, if they're not both 1, what's the lowest we could make them? Well, it's 1 and 2. But the logic is symmetrical here. If these are both 1, this one breaks. So the minimum we can make these 2 is 1 and 2. So now we've got a situation where we can't add more than 7 to 120 from each of the boxes, so the maximum we can reach is 141, but the absolute minimum we can deduct is 6, which brings us back to 135. So we have to be using the maximums in the greens, so these have to be 3s and 4s, and we have to be using the minimums in the blues. And it's very cute logic, isn't it, the way these V's are applied, well, the way they've been used to form this constraint. So I guess all of these now have to be not 3 and 4. Now that's all good stuff. The worry is that actually it's not got us a digit. Maybe we can... Yeah, because look at this square. If this square is a 1, it doesn't just affect this square, it forces those two to both be 1s as well, because this 1 would be ruling out 1 from those two squares. 2, 3. And if you get... Ah, that's interesting. Look, if both of those were also 1, then you'd have 5 1s in this diagonal, which would mean these squares would have to add up to 27, and they would have to be 3 9s. That is... Oh, the problem, I think, with that is that... Well, there's two problems. The first problem is that you don't know that the 1s are here. They could be here, but that's still very restricted. 31 is, after all, very close to 32. So one of these diagonals has to have 3 1s on it. But I'm not sure it's true to say, you know, if this was the one with 3 1s, is there anything forcing this to be a 1 as well? I don't think there is yet, but maybe later there will be. So anyway, that's all a long-winded way of getting us absolutely nowhere. Okay, we've got some 1-2 pairs around the place. So this has either got to be 3 7 or 4 6. I suppose I could notate that. I'm not sure it's going to do anything for me. So there's a sort of virtual 3-4 pair in those 3 squares. Okay, well I think all I've got left to do is to think of these 3 little killer clues as a 3 as well. So let's do that and see if that shows anything. So it's those squares. Let's colour them in. I will colour them red. So these have to add up to 73. Ah, all right, okay. So that I can see is quite tricky to do, because the absolute minimum I can keep these squares down to, if I make those as big as I can, these still have to be 28. So if I make these 8 and 9, we know the box is 45, so these would still add to 28. These would add to 28 if I make those 8 and 9. Now I've already got to 56, and I've still got 4 squares to count. And the interesting thing about this is that these 2 squares can't be 1, 2, 3 or 4. So if I make those 5, I'm already at 66, and I've got to get to 73. Yeah, this is. Well, this definitely can't be 6 or 7, because this can't be 1 or 2. So, oh, I see. Oh, this is clever. There's communication here through box 9. Okay, so at this point, if we put absolute minimums into everything, apart from the sort of wing squares of this red region, so apart from these 2 squares, if we put absolute minimums, we get to 66. So these 2 orangey squares now cannot be more than 7. But because this can't be a 1 or a 2 up here, the minimum we could make this would be 3 and 4. Now we might look like we've got a degree of freedom to play with here, but we haven't, because you can't make both of those 3. Because it rules 3 out of both of the positions it could go in box 9. So actually everything is forced, isn't it? This has to be a 3-4 pair. These have to be 8s and 9s. Both of those have to be 5, and we get digits in the grid. That therefore can't be 3 or 4. Now, what has this done for us, if anything? 3, 4 here, so this So this domino has to be either 1 9 or 2 1 9 or 2 8. And there's something interesting there. If you look at column 9 of the grid, where does we know one of these digits will be a 1 or a 2. Where does the other one go? It can't go there because we've got a 1-2 pair in box 9, and it can't go here because there's a 1-2 pair in the row. So this square is a 1 or a 2. We've got a virtual 8-9 pair in the column. So these 3 squares have to be 5, 6 and 7. Sorry about this, I'm just trying to work out what this means. A 1-2 pair in box 6 now. So 16. I'm not sure whether I'm meant to. I think I've got to look at one of these diagonals. I have to say the 34 is not appealing. Let's just double check it. We know these have to be different digits. So far we've got 12, which means we've got 20 into those squares, which is an average of exactly 5. The 16 might be more interesting because this square has to be, it can't be a 1 or a 2. So, yeah, okay. Here's a good question. What happens if neither of those squares is a 1 or a 2? Now, if neither of these squares is a 1 or a 2, you can see this one would have to be at least 5, and the minimum this one could be would be 3. That's 3, 5, which is 8, plus 5 is 13. Now the problem here is you can't keep these two down to 3 because this one can't be a 1 or a 2. So actually there must be a 1 or a 2 in these two squares. Now, is that helpful? So we know 3 of the cell. Right, okay, yeah. So we know 3 of the cells on the 16 diagonal must add up to 8 because there's a 5 here and there's a 1-2 pair somehow. Because one of these two has to be 1 or 2. So the other 2 cells have to sum to 8, and that is interesting. That is interesting because we can't make 8 with this square and whichever one of these is not 1, 2. Using a 1 or a 2. So we can't use 1, 7 or 2, 8 because the 1 and the 2 have gone from both boxes. So we're left, well, I suppose it could be 2 4s. I was about to say we're left with 3 5, but oh, bobbins. Although oh, no, this is very clever. Oh, look, it communicates through this box. You can't put 2 4s in. Look, well, you can see this square can't be a 4 because there's a 3 4 in the row. But if you try and put 4s into these 2 squares, which is the other alternative, you can't because now these 4s see both of those 4s in the central box, a bit like these 3 4s saw the 3 4s in box 9. These 4s see those 4s. So you can't use 2 4s to make the 8 balance. So we've got to be using 5 and 3. So we now know exactly what's on this diagonal. We just don't know where it is. Oh, we do know where it is. Because we've got to put a second 5 in. And this 5 sees those 2 squares. So this has to be 5. This has to be the 1 or the 2, therefore. And this has to be 3. And hopefully, and it does, this now adds up to the right number. Oh, that felt like it was a big breakthrough. It is a big breakthrough. The 3 here sees that 3. 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2. Actually, that was. I don't know that one's true. This one is true. That does have to be 2. That's a 1. That's a 2. That's a 1. So now this must be a 1 by Sudoku. This must be a 2 by Sudoku. This is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is a 4, and suddenly the puzzle is definitely revealing some secrets, isn't it? This 3 forces the 4, 6 at the bottom of column 3. That's not 6 anymore. That's not 5. This 1 sees the 1 and the 2. This 2 forces a 1, 9 pair at the top of the column. That forces this to be 8, this to be 9. Oh. Yeah, this 5 is forcing everything, isn't it? So that's got to be 7, 6, 5. This is an 8, 9 pair. These are 4, 6, and 7. Don't know how to do that. These... okay, so maybe we can... oh yeah, look, we've got 1s. We can just use some Sudoku. 1 can go there. 2 can go here. Exactly the same logic, look. 5 must be restricted. 5 is a little bit restricted. It's got to go in one of those 2 squares. We've got an 8, 9 pair here. So these 2... ah. So what do we need to complete this row? Oh, we still need to put a 2 in it. The 2 has to go there. And then this square should be a 7, I think. The 7... is that useful for this diagonal now? Because now on this diagonal we've got 9, 10, we've got 15. So these 2 squares have to add up to 10. Now, if that's... I don't believe it. That's actually quite poor. Well, that can't be 4 because we can't put a 6 here. But it does look like this could be 3 or 4. Which is quite surprising given how many 3s and 4s we've got in the grid. Ah, but we can use Sudoku to help us here because we've got 4s there, there and there. So that forces this to be 4, which forces this to be 6. These 2 squares, therefore, have got to be 3 and 6, which, again, I can't seem to... oh, yes, I can. There's a 6 here. The closest thing was helping me out, and I refuse to see it. That must be a 6. These must be 7, 8, and 9. And suddenly this puzzle is becoming at least tractable. 4, 7, 8 over here. That's not 4. Can we do anything with 3? Ah, yeah, 3s. I was just going to ask whether we could do anything with 3s, and we can. We can put a 3 here. This... yeah, this is important. Look, this X, which I think is our last X or V clue to look at, it sees 2, 8, 3, 7, and 1, 9 in the column. So that must be 4, 6. Right, okay, so where does 4 now go in column 8 of the grid? That can't be 4, that can't be 4. So the only position is here. This 4 rules a 4 out from that square. These squares have got to be, what's that, 4, 6 and 8, I think. That one can't be 4 still. These have got to be 5 and 7. And, oh dear, no, so now I'm starting to get stuck, I think. So we're going to have to... oh no, look, these 3 squares I can write... well, I can't write them in, but I can see that they've... oh, I can write one of them in. This square's got to be a 9. It can't be a 2 or a... oh, in fact, that's got to be a 2, therefore. Oh, so we've got more Sudoku we can do. Good. Now those 3 squares have got to be 3, 4 and 5. That one's got to be 5. There's a 3 and a 4 in its column. So actually this column is quite restricted. You can still, we still need 7 and 8 into those squares. Oh, and look, oh, Bobby, Sorry, I am so sorry. I've just realised I've not been looking at these. For some reason they weren't in my eyes and I'd forgotten about them, so probably this would have resolved the puzzle about 10 minutes ago. So let's go back to Little Killer. What have we got down here? We've got 714 in those squares, so we need another 18 in 2 cells. Right, well, we can do that. That's got to be 2 9s. That's the only way that's going to work. And yeah, that is going to break the puzzle open. Oh, sorry, I should have spotted that. That's a 6, just unwinding pencil marks. Okay, so what are we left with? We're left with 5s, 7s and 8s, and presumably, yeah, look at this one. We've almost finished this diagonal. We've got 18, 24 so far, so we need another 7, so we can do that. That means we get all of those. We get these. We get a 7 here, I think. This has got to be a 4, 6, looking at the column. There's a 6 in the row. So that's 4, that's 8, that's 6, that's 4, that's something, 6. What's that going to be? 9, I think. We still need a 1, 1, 9. And over here we need 5 and 8, which is also doable. And we've actually got, look, this diagonal completed. So I'm just going to check this. This should add to 57. 19, 25, 30, 38, 6, 46 and 11 is 57. So that's all good. This 7's fixing the 7 and the 8. That should be a 9, therefore. This 4 is fixing the 4 and the 3. That's got to be an 8 by Sudoku. That's a 5. That's a 7. And hopefully we put a 3 in there. We click check. And it says good. It's good. So brilliant puzzle. Really cool. I really think that the way Stavros96 used these V clues to sort of pinch cells, the cells like these two, it's very original. I really liked it, and these actually. So very original setting, good use of the geometry, very satisfying Star Wars related puzzle. And yeah, I'm not sure what level of Jedi I am, but hopefully it's some sort. Let me know in the comments how you got on. We'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.